Hey y'all, and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to tell you about what's going on with CSUF Esports. This will be the first of a couple update videos I want to do in this series, and I think now that we're a little bit more settled in and we've got a few things going on, now's the perfect time to tell you what we've been doing. As the newly appointed director of esports, I want to tell you guys what CSUF Esports looks like as an organization, tell you about our long-term goals, and tell you about what we've been doing in the short term to reach those goals. Before we talk about these long-term goals though, I do want to say thank you to Alienware for all the gear they've hooked me up with. I recently started a new internship, and between school, esports, and my internship, it can be pretty difficult to stay on top of things. So I really like using the Alienware M15 R3 laptop wherever I am so that I can stay on top of all of the things I need to take care of and be organized at the same time. I want to start off by giving you guys a brief overview of what CSUF Esports looks like as an organization, because I think it'll provide some useful context for these goals that we're about to talk about. First things first, CSUF Esports is a student-run organization and is classified as a sports club. Now, for those of you not familiar with what that means at Cal State Fullerton, we're basically just like any other student club, but we get a few extra fancy permissions that lets us compete. Internally, we have a director of esports, myself, 2 assistant directors, a social media team, a graphics team, and coaches that manage each of our 5 titles. Our 5 titles are League of Legends, Valorant, Rocket League, Fortnite, and Overwatch currently. And lastly, we receive no direct funding from the school, which means we have to look externally for all of our resources. This is going to help explain a couple of the goals I'm about to talk about as well. First long-term goal that I want to talk about is the internal structure of CSUF Esports. Now, previously this has kind of been, for lack of a better term, a mess. So the first thing I wanted to do was revamp that. It means kind of clearly defining roles inside the organization and improving communication overall. One of my biggest communication goals was to make sure that everybody kind of had a general idea of what was going on. So that if you asked the Rocket League coach when the next League of Legends major event is, they'd be able to give you at least some basic information on that. And part of how we're making sure that everybody's staying up to date is just checking in individually with all of the coaches and other board members as well. One of my more ambitious long-term goals for CSUF Esports is to work on our social media. Traditionally, CSUF Esports hasn't had the best social media presence online. One of the things I talked about in improving the organization overall is really working on the kind of social media that we're putting out. Helping to build a narrative behind a lot of these teams and these players can be as simple as some player interviews, highlight reels, and just even clips from games and tournaments they participated in. Things like this help to maintain these narratives that are so important to getting the community to rally behind you. In the short term, in order to address this goal, we've had our graphics team create a bunch of awesome templates that are going to help us keep everyone up to date on when matches are and also report on results. We're also scheduling a couple of media days for the teams, the first up of which is Rocket League. Fans of Danny, Spuda, and Riddles should be on the lookout for that in early August. My third long-term goal for CSUF Esports is jerseys. Now, this seems kind of like a hyper-specific goal, but this kind of goes back to when I was talking about the sports club and how we don't receive direct funding from the school. One of the biggest things that I'd like to be able to do is get all of the coaches and varsity players in the organization this year a jersey that represents CSUF Esports. These players put in a ton of time and effort, and I'd love to see them be able to represent the organization on campus and wherever else they'd like to. While having no funding makes this a little bit harder to achieve, in the meantime we are working on setting up a couple of fundraising events to try and offset the cost of these jerseys, as well as working with a couple of different apparel companies and see if we might be able to work out some sort of sponsorship. And my last goal for CSUF Esports is kind of a weird goal. I ultimately want to see CSUF Esports transition away from being a student-run organization. Now, while I absolutely love student-run organizations and I think that they are some of the most important lifeblood of the campus experience, I think that for something like esports, it's best handled by faculty. Ultimately, when faculty is involved, whether it be IT, athletics, some combination thereof, or even in a different department, it really kind of opens up the door to more official resources for players. This can be things like scholarship, priority registration, and actual dedicated funding for these programs. In the short term, we are working with university administration and we have made some progress, but unfortunately, as everyone knows, the wheels of bureaucracy grind very slowly. So hopefully I'll have a better update on where we are at with that transition in the next video. And that's going to wrap up my long-term goals for CSUF Esports. While tackling some of these goals may be challenging, I'm excited for what we've got in the works, and I can't wait to see where CSUF Esports is going to be by the next update video. As always, thank you for watching, and have a great day.